I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into another episode of Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website, clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Got, as usual, a lot to get into today, man. I'm going to talk about a piece that I wrote for Pippen Ain't Easy, a piece that I wrote for Clocker Sports, some NFL news with contract talk, some more movies coming out. You know, ESPN's on a run with these documentaries right now. We already know about, we just got done watching The Last Dance. They played Game 6, the movie, the night before, or they played Game 6, the movie after that, and we got another one on the way too. But before we get into any of that, we got to talk about some NBA stuff, and word is the Nets are in the market for a third superstar. Now, this is actually not the part of the story that's news. If you recall, Kyrie Irving had talked about it a little while back, saying that it was pretty obvious that the team needs to get a third star. They need to upgrade the roster, which was pretty bold talk at the time, but obviously the organization felt the same way. Or, you know, stars get to talk and you see how that gets to working around the team. But according to Stephen Bondi of the New York Daily News, Bradley Beal is one of the names that they have internally bandied about, and it's interesting because Beal has been a sidekick to John Wall for most of his career, but obviously with John Wall missing much of the last year plus with injuries, it's been the Beal show, and he was averaging 30 points per game this season before everything got shut down, and he obviously an all-star snub, not obviously, but he was an all-star snub, and that was a point of contention with him. He spoke out about that and wondered how that could happen, and he figured it was because he was with the Wizards. Now, he hedged against saying that the Wizards were the reason why he didn't make the All-Star team by saying that he wants to retire there. So don't jump ahead the gun here and say, oh, you know, that's his first way out. But the deal is workable. Now, it would have to probably combine some form, way, shape, or form, Karis LeVert. But then the other parts get kind of interesting. Do you move Spencer Dinwiddie? Do you somehow throw in DeAndre Jordan? Do you work in Jared Allen? Which one of those two guys? Now, I would imagine Jared Allen will be the one to go because DeAndre Jordan was basically handpicked by Durant and Irving to be a member of the team, which is interesting now because that's kind of the third star that they were demanding, right? Like, the contract-wise, they probably shouldn't have pushed so hard for him when they had a young guy in Jared Allen under control for much, much less. Now you got to trade him for a third star. Wow. But neither here nor there because the Bradley Beal thing is just he this year he's more impressive than his 30 points per game, which is impressive. But even more impressive than that is that he's got career highs at the free throw line. That's in attempts, attempt rate, and percentage, and it's a testament to him taking his game to another level because he could just be scoring and just shooting more shots, which he is shooting more shots, but he's, like I said, getting to the line more often. He's played 82 games the last 2 years. He was playing all 57 games for the Wizards this year, and I just don't know how that'll work. So, on the one hand, you have three dynamic scorers, right? And when you put them all together, I'm not really worried about KD. We saw KD share the rock in Golden State, and we know that he knows when it's time to take over. He's incredibly efficient, so KD is not the worry here. It's Kyrie and Beal that are the worry. Neither one of them are particularly efficient, right around the 47-45% range from the floor, and that's where it gets kind of dicey. Now, neither one of them, or Kyrie's not a traditional point guard, so he's not looking to set up Beal. He's looking for his own shot. Beal's looking for his own shot, which is one of the reasons why he and John Wall kind of clashed at times because Wall could have a tendency to try to do too much himself scoring wise and not be enough of a passer, which he's a tremendous passer. So when you see him, you know, you kind of wish that he would set his teammates up a little bit better. But that's beside the point. We're talking about Beal right now going to the Nets. Him and Irving is what really bothers me. There's going to be no defense. Now, you could always put a defense at the three, defensive player at the three, and you'd have Jordan in the middle. So that would be your defensive presence, but it's tough. I mean, it's an offensive league. So I'm not going to say it wouldn't work. It's just interesting because you're definitely sacrificing defense, like, because Kyrie's not good at defense. Like, let's not make any bones about it, right? And Beal's effort, he's better, but he's not great either. So it's not off. I mean, CJ and Dame, so it could work. It could work. Again, it's not Kevin Durant I'm worried about. It's Kyrie and literally Beal sharing the ball and being able to get some stops. Now, I guess if you're outscoring everybody, it really doesn't matter. And you're not asking them. I mean, Kyrie's played sidekick. I don't know how. I just don't know where you go. Beal would obviously be the third player, but he's at this point 30 points per game. He feels like he's the man. Clearly, the way he was talking is that honestly something that he wants to go ahead with. Now, obviously, it's all still null and void because he said that he wants to remain a Wizard until he retires. So that's just speculation for now. But if that's the name that they're really trying to pursue, they could do much worse. So while I'll say I don't necessarily see it being a great fit, it's not a horrible fit. They're going to score a lot of points, and they're going to have multiple options, especially if with Kevin Durant coming back from his Achilles and Kyrie Irving has all his injuries that he's dealt with over his career, they would probably like to have somebody else who can carry the load anyway. So that's fine. I just don't know, how it's going to work with the backcourt. And then on top of that, if that's not enough, the salary of those two players would be 88%. Or I'm sorry, of those three players would be 88% of the roster, of the salary cap. Those three players combined, 88% of the salary cap. That's too much. That's you're piecemealing everything else, and you need a lot. You need some depth. You still need some defensive players, like I said, on the wing. What is that? You keep Taurean Prince, and you got DeAndre Jordan. Is that enough? I mean, it's a solid starting five, but like, what about the bench after that? Because you're gutting it with getting rid of Dinwiddie and LeVert at that point. So it's a pricey maneuver, but it's definitely a power play to try to take over the East when everybody is healthy. So keep an eye on the Nets, Bradley Beal, and really just that situation altogether to see how that kind of turns out. Because, like I said, Kyrie spoke on it, and now you see that there's more whispers about it coming out now. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So just keep an eye out to see where they could be going to find their third superstar to join their two in KD and Kyrie. Speaking of, not really speaking of, just switching gears to the Last Dance, and everybody's kind of having to weigh in on it. Former teammates are not too happy, which honestly, let me just say this. If you grew up watching those Bulls teams, and in that time, you were aware of all of those things, I think you might have learned more about Mike than you learned about any of his teammates. And to hear them all be so upset, it's kind of funny because it's like, what are you mad about? It was all kind of true. But that's not what we want to talk about. I want to talk about the post Last Dance reactions, and one in particular, Magic Johnson. He spoke on the GOAT after watching the Last Dance, and here's what he had to say. He said that LeBron, when you talk about the best all-around basketball player, it's probably LeBron. But when you want to talk greatest, it's got to be Michael Jordan. Now, this is interesting because this is something that I brought up on this show a few times, actually. And it's not really a debate that I've kind of had, but because I'm not really sure how many people are going to be receptive, how receptive people are going to be to it. But now that Magic said it, I have my foot in the door here as somebody with some clout kind of broaching this topic before I do. I really think there is a separation that needs to be made here because, and I actually had this discussion earlier, LeBron falls under a category of Wilt and Kareem, two other statistically great and dominant players, right? But part of the GOAT debate is the way that you're able to shape the game around you. And I think that's where Mike had it. There was nobody, you heard it in the Last Dance, there was nobody, no team had built their team around the guard like that before. Until the Bulls did it with Mike. And you see it where LeBron has been able to form teams, and there's been teams around him. It's hard to explain in that you hear players say that they want to play with LeBron more, right? They say, I love to play, the current players, I love to play with LeBron. I love to play with LeBron. That's because he would set them up to do what they want to do. I think it's just a different mindset. I'm having a hard time putting this part into words usually because, more than usual, because it's I've thought about it many times, but I just can't seem to articulate it at this point. I kind of lost my train of thought with it. So Magic says LeBron is the best all around. MJ's the greatest. And I think there's a difference because you can be the most talented, but that doesn't mean that you're the best at something. Being the best takes skill and a lot more intangible factors than just your overall ability. Now, like I was saying with the unicorns, you can't really change the game when people can't imitate what you can do. Changing the game requires replication. You can't replicate size, right, of Wilt and Kareem and that skill. You can't replicate that size, skill, speed, strength, vision with LeBron. So while he is a game changer, he's not changing the game. I might have to trademark that line. Game changer, but you're not changing the game. He's definitely a difference maker, but because of the fact that you don't see, like, I would argue that aside from player movement, okay, that's a huge game changer, right? And that's changing the game. It's hard to. That's the catch-22 right there. I'm gonna have to refine that argument a little bit more, but I'm gonna stick with it for now because I would say that basketball play-wise, Stephen Curry has changed the game more than LeBron has. Now, you could say LeBron has guys wanting to handle the ball at his height, but I mean, again, nobody's that combination of size, speed, strength, skill. He's under the unicorn umbrella. Those guys, it's hard for them. It's impossible for them to change the game because people just can't do what they do. Michael Jordan was 6'6". Now, that's tall for regular people standards, right? But that's not, he wasn't a big guy. He was a slight build. He had to bulk up to 180, 200, I believe, to get to the, to get through the Detroit Pistons and stuff like that. So it was, you get closer to the common man, and those are the guys who people gravitate to, and they end up becoming the faces of the league. That's why Steph Curry got his place amongst that pantheon of recognizable faces so fast, because he was an average person by standards comparison. What am I talking about? By standards comparing the regular people to NBA players height wise. That's what made him so relatable. I'm just telling you, that's the difference in it. LeBron might be the best all around, and I'm not sure if I would even phrase it that way. I would say that he's the most talented player, most physically gifted. That's for damn sure. But greatest, I think, is part of why. I think that kind of enhances the fact that Michael Jordan and his team were able to win. Speaking of which, Karl Malone made a very funny video talking about how, they asked him about Mike, and he was saying, "What do I got to say?" And not, what am I supposed to say? And which is, that's the answer I was expecting him, to give. But then he spoke on, I'll say this, that whenever they played, he never thought of it as playing Michael Jordan. He thought about it as playing the team. And I stopped right there because I was like, well, that's the difference, right? You hear Karl Malone, I never thought I was playing against Michael Jordan. And then you juxtapose that with Michael Jordan. So I took it personal. Like, Malone is the star on the Jazz. You don't have to think that you're going head to head, but it's definitely you versus him. That's the way the public eye is. That's the way it's going to be made out to be, and that's obviously how the other guys taking it. And that kind of stuff is what pushes you over the top. I just think that summed it up really well, honestly. And Malone kind of told on himself. He was like, "I'm a man. I own up for it." And then when he said that, I was like, well, dude, there you go. That's the difference. I tweeted it out. That's the difference. I'm sorry. You don't have to like Mike and think you could think that he was a douchebag and all that stuff, which, duh. I don't know why anybody thought he was nice and cupcakes and rainbows. We knew he was a douche. You knew that. Stop being surprised. Stop acting like you didn't know he was mean to his teammates. You knew that. Don't be brand new. But Malone saying that he didn't think of it as he was playing Mike, boom. That was it. That says all you need to know right there about why things didn't turn out the way they probably could have for the Utah Jazz in any of those series against the Chicago Bulls. So, the camera's a little messed up. And then switching gears to the a piece that I wrote for Pippen Ain't Easy, talking about Josh Jackson. Now, the Bulls recently had not the Bulls. Antoine Walker recently went on 670 the score in Chicago and was speaking on Chicago not being a destination for top-tier free agents, really for free agents at all, but for top-tier free agents more than anything. And that's not news to anybody in the city. Like, people from Chicago know. If you're a Bulls fan, you know that they're not a prime destination for any of these prime guys. And I think that him saying it was a harsh reminder. But again, if you know it, it's kind of like, all right, well, so what? But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't that they can't go out and land some serious talent. And that was the premise behind the article. And it highlights, like I said, Josh Jackson, a player who came in the league drafted. He was 4th overall by the Phoenix Suns. And first and foremost, let me just say that when you go to the Phoenix Suns, I think that should buy you at least 2 more years in the league past that contract before you get started, before you get counted against you, because it's Phoenix. I'm just saying. Since the 7 seconds or less, they have not been quite the same, and it's been a while, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon. So I kind of excuse him for that, but he also had some issues of his own, personal things with his child and marijuana and some wild stuff, and just kept getting in trouble, tried to break into a club, tried to force his way into a club, and didn't have his IDs. Just some weird, wild stuff. Again, I kind of attribute that to being in a wayward organization without much leadership itself. There's no direction in the organization. How can you expect a rookie to have direction? So that's where I kind of chalk that up to. But it's not, that doesn't absolve him from anything. That's just, it's Phoenix, dude. I'm not going to be too upset for somebody for not living up to their potential with the Phoenix Suns. He got traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. They sent him down, and that's where kind of he began his redemption story. He spent 26 games in the G League, and he put up a respectable 27-4 line on 44, 38, and 60 shooting. Now, if you know anything about Jackson's career, coming in and throughout, he's had an issue with his jump shot. It's been very inconsistent, and at the free throw line. Well, that slash line is very impressive, especially the 38% from 3 and the 60% from the free throw line. Now, 60% from the free throw line is nothing to write home about, but for a guy like him who's in the 50s, that is a marked improvement and something that he really was not able to show consistently in his time up. Now, he did have a streak of about 12 or so games his rookie season where he ended up in double digits plus. And about, I want to say 4 out of his last 5, he was 20 plus points per game. So he's got the potential to be a really consistent scorer. I just think he needs a chance. Well, the Bulls have not necessarily an opening. Otto Porter will be coming back next year, but they don't necessarily have reliable wings behind him. Chandler Hutchison has been hurt repeatedly. Denzel Valentine has been in and out of the doghouse. We'll see how the new regime feels about him, but there's a strong chance that they try to move one of those guys, maybe even both. Who knows what they're planning on doing. But if they're going to try to find some cheap, if they want to look for some cheap, possibly top tier talent, you should go look at Josh Jackson. He was a guy who can defend. He can play multiple positions, guard 1 through 3, get you some 4 even. And if you can find a way for him to unlock that jump shot, you have a dangerous weapon at the 3 when Otto Porter's contract runs out at the end of this season. I do not anticipate a team trading for him next season. They're going to finish out this year, rumors are. And when we get some more details about that, we'll discuss that probably on the next episode. But for the time being, you got to assume that Porter's going to be here throughout the year. But then you're going to lose out on him. You got to have some kind of backup. And even if you keep Hutchison around, I think having Jackson and Hutchison, there will be a nice combo on the wings. You just don't find pieces like him able to hit the open market. And this is all because Memphis decided to decline his 4th-year option. So if you have the chance, like the Bulls could, to really have a player who was, again, a high lottery pick, you got to pounce on it. And that's the article that I wrote for Pippen Indies. You can go and check that out. Please do. Again, won't cost you much. Not much of an investment. If he doesn't work, he doesn't work. You can get rid of him. No harm done. But if he hits, that's one hell of a way to start rebounding your image around the league. Going to take a quick break, and we come back and switch gears, talk about the NFL and a couple of interesting developments since, again, post last doc. Don't go anywhere. Triple zeros. You already know what it is, man. Be right back. Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buck. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck, Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com, email address, clockersports@gmail.com. Now, before the break, I told you that there was some interesting developments on the documentary side. ESPN has been on a higgity lately. Last Dance was a smashing success, most viewed documentary of all time. Was viewed documentary? Sports documentary. Either one, tremendous success. They followed that up with Game 6, the movie, which was, you know what, really entertaining. I was quite surprised by that. I did not expect it to be anywhere close to thrilling, but it definitely was. The cinematic angles to it were exciting. But that has all led to the announcement of a Tom Brady documentary coming out. So it's called Man in the Arena, and it's based on him and his career. Now, here's the thing. I'm not really against it, right? But it's extremely self-serving to have a documentary come out while you're still playing. Now, I know Mike had one, so I can't judge it too harshly, but damn, there is zero subtlety involved in this one. Let it be known, Brady's letting y'all know who the GOAT is. In his mind, I'm a Joe Montana guy myself, but I mean, I won't argue with anybody when they say Tom Brady is the GOAT. ESPN is trying to cash in on these big names during all the Rona. I found that very interesting to see that the Brady. Now, again, 6 championships. He's played 20 years in one city. Moving on now, I see that's the thing that intrigues me the most. I kind of wish they would have waited until he got done because he moved into another spot. This feels like something that should have been done for Brady in football post-career, especially because he decided to go to another team just to see how everything works out. But a lot of people were making jokes because obviously, are they going to talk about Deflategate? Are they going to talk about the are they going to put the Tuck rule? You know what I mean? Him getting man, if you thought the Jordan documentary was a fluff piece, I can't imagine this thing is going to be anywhere close to impartial because, I mean, if it is at all, it's going to look real bad. Now, again, that's only an issue because he's still playing, but I just don't know how do you sugarcoat it because, dude, people going to still get a chance to come and get you. You know what I mean? That's the part that's interesting to me, right? When you have these kind of things come out, teams, opposing teams and former teammates and things like that, current teammates can hear you, can respond and react in real time. Like, that's not, I don't know if anybody thought that part all the way through. That's why it's, man, that's an interesting one. I mean, a lot of people they don't want it, it's Patriots Brady fatigue all day, every day, to this day. And that's cool, but I think that's still. I'm gonna watch it. Let me just leave it at that. I'm going to partake when it does finally air. But it definitely does seem a little bit premature if you're asking me. Nobody asked me, but I'm telling you, it's a little bit premature. In other news, Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott reportedly turned down a $35 million deal. $35 million per year deal from the Dallas Cowboys. This is per Chris Sims. Now, reportedly, the deal was for 5 years, $175 million, which breaks down to $35 million per year. But according to Sims, Prescott wants $45 million per year. Now, that would already make him the top-paid quarterback in the league. He's obviously trying to destroy the market. Here's the thing, though. First of all, the Cowboys pushed back. Okay, first and foremost. Now, that's just one. Their whole thing was it's never been this kind of issue. It's always a year thing, and that makes perfect sense because Prescott wants 45. If you take that 175 and move it from a 5-year deal to a 4-year deal, it's 43.5. Now, it's not 45, but it's definitely in the ballpark, and it's a more per year than the $35 million. That's a happy medium for both sides. Well, maybe not for the Cowboys, but it should be for the Cowboys. It's a happy medium for both sides because the Cowboys don't have to move off the number that they're willing to pay him, and Prescott gets the money that he's looking for or close to that number per year. Now, they said he was looking in excess of, that's what Sim says. He's looking in excess of $45 million. But 43.5, that is close. You're destroying the market still on a per year basis, and you get your 4-year deal. Now, that seems to be the area of contention for the Cowboys. They want the long-term commitment for him in 5 years. But I think that if you give him a 4-year deal, there's no reason he doesn't re-sign in Dallas after that's up. It's Dallas. You're not going anywhere to get bigger, more prestige. You're not going anywhere to get loved on more than you will playing for the Cowboys. So it makes no sense to me for them to be insecure about that 5th year. That being said, if they don't do it, I know where he should go. Just saying, there's a city here, it's a Midwest town that would love to have a quarterback that can go out there and sling the rock and throw 20-something touchdowns and have 11 or fewer interceptions. Go for it. His career high for interceptions is 13. Let's do that, please. More of that. People are hard on Dak because he hasn't gotten the Cowboys to the big game yet, and obviously I think he set the bar high when he went 13-3 as a rookie. But that was 23-4 touchdown interception ratio. But since then, he's just been kind of mediocre. The team has been kind of mediocre, and they've gone through a coach. Now, here's my issue with people piling on Dak and destroying him. He's put up the numbers that he's put up, right? With Jason Garrett as his head coach, now fired. Having to run the ball because you got one of the best running backs in the game behind you, which so makes sense, but his offense is still kind of archaic in that nature. He's had to deal with offensive line injuries. He's had receivers who dropped the most passes in the league last year. I believe they're up there in drops last year. And then he had lack of talent before they got Amari Cooper. And yet and still he's been healthy. He's been consistent. So I honestly don't understand. It's got to be something to do with the star in his helmet, because if you take that away and just look at the stats, Dak has been consistent. He hasn't been spectacular, but he's been really good. Now, you want to talk about the amount of money that he's going to get? All I'm going to say is he came around at the right time. There's always a quarterback that gets overpaid. Derek Carr was that guy, right? Derek Carr got paid a lot of money. People didn't. I mean, look, I'm not going to say he deserves. I get your money. When you can get paid, get paid. Again, if the Cowboys are willing to give him $175, cut that year off, he's coming back for that 5th year. You'll get him for another I promise you. And you might do yourself a favor because maybe he doesn't live up to it and you get to renegotiate it, or you'll get to come back at a lesser number. Not likely, but there's a chance that you do. And maybe he stays the same. I'm just saying that one, you're giving him the money anyway. Don't let 1 year get in the way of the goodwill that you guys built up. Now, again, Jerry ends up paying people more than likely. So chances are this deal will get done. But I do need to point out that what Sims was saying was disputed by the Cowboys. They say it's a year thing, and if that's the case, it should be closer to done than not, because just lop off that year, same amount of money. That gets closer to the number that Sims says that he wants, and the Cowboys get to stay at their overall price point. Simple. Last thing I want to talk about, though, is my piece on ClockerSports.com, the worst off seasons of 2020 in the NFL. A 3-piece special. I kind of teased this one on the last episode, talking about the Bears and how bad they were and how good it could have been. I do want to do a little bit more on that. I think I might do that one for last word, talk about what could have happened and break it down money-wise even, because the Bears spent some money, more money than I think anybody expected them to, but did they spend it wisely? Obviously, I think the early returns on that are going to be a no, so we'll have to dig deeper into that one, and that be on the lookout for that. But this piece for Clocker Sports came out, and it's the 3 worst all season. It was going to be 5, but after 3, I kind of got a little bit muddled up and couldn't decide, and I ended up with about 7 or 8 teams that I could have thrown in there. At the end of it all, and I'm not going that deep with this because I kind of went deeper in each team than I thought it was going to. But the gist of it is it's 3 teams. 2 of them are in the same division, and I'm just going to say right now, they're obvious, right? It wasn't hard to figure out the 3 that were the worst to me. I told you about the Bears. I will give you my number 2, and it's the Packers. That's the 2 in the same division, so that means that the other one's out of the division. It is in the AFC. If you've been following, you know exactly who this is. They made a boneheaded, grave error that they will regret for a while, and I think it's going to cost somebody some jobs sooner rather than later, because it just wasn't a good look. But the important part about this is that it's the first half to the second to a series. Well, not is it a series? No, 2-part installment. Whatever. First half to a 2-part installment of the offseason. The next one's going to be obviously the best top 3, and the first one that has to come up, and it comes to my mind, I think has to be the Miami Dolphins. And why? Because it was an obvious draft and offseason for them, and I think that they did what they set out to do and didn't have to force anything. The Bengals would have been up there because I like a lot of what they've done, but they've also like the thing that keeps the Bengals from making that list for me, despite getting the first, I think getting the quarterback of the future for them, the right guy in Joe Burrow, doubling down on Vikings cornerbacks is a weird choice to me, right? If they're gonna let both of those guys go, chances are you don't need to bring in both of those guys. I'm just saying. I'm not sure how they feel about it. I know Mike Zimmer used to be there, but that was an interesting choice to me because it just didn't seem like one that should have been made. Another team that I'm kind of flirting with putting on this list might actually be the Denver Broncos. Their offseason has just been stellar, and I'm a fan of Drew Lock already. I like Vic Fangio because he's the former Bears defensive coordinator, but they've added some weapons for him that I think is going to make that offense scary for that division, scarier than the people are expecting to be. The Raiders might be taking a step back despite probably improving on paper. They didn't really improve that much, in my opinion. And then the Chargers, I think, are going to take a step back because they don't have Phillip Rivers anymore. So look for the Broncos to be at least team number 2 in that division, and they're going to probably make the list because they had a really, really good offseason. And number 1, I might have to keep that under my hat for a little while. We'll see what ends up coming out with that. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Hit up the website, clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Read the stuff, man. Pippinainteasy.com. Last word on pro football. Like I said, be on the lookout for that, how the Bears offense offseason could have gone on Last Word on Pro Football. And, of course, check out Clocker Sports because we are, we're growing, dude. Added 3 new writers coming out. We're going to be announcing those guys any day now. And excited for what that's going to be. So be sure to be looking out for all those things. Also, the podcast is now on iTunes and TuneIn Radio. So just more options. We everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Trying to do what we got to do. But until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I think that's the sound of the horns, bro. I'm not sure. Is it? It is.